we go.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm John Taylor. I am a clinical social worker, a therapist just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. The bulk of the work I do is with sexual addiction and trauma and relationships and how all three of those things come together. So that's kind of where this webinar idea came from. Is I work with a lot of people on issues related to being more effective in their relationships, especially later on in their recoveries, whether they're an addict themselves or they're partner of an addict. So I think that recovery brings us some really useful insights into how relationships work, and we make those work in our recovery circles. And those principles, I think, can help us in any relationship we're in. So that's what we talk about. Last week, our topic was eye care, and we looked at some perspectives on self-care, reasons why we would practice self-care to help a relationship. This week, the topic is on you care. Ways that we can support our partner in being the best partner they can be to show up for the relationship. So there's a poll. If you could complete it, we're going to use this information a little later on, and then we have some discussion questions that we'll be looking at. So to start out this U-Care, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about the basketball team that I coach right now. You have to know a couple of things about me. I don't play any sports because I'm not coordinated enough. And this basketball team is my 9-year-old's basketball team. So it's a bunch of third graders in the city rec league. And I volunteered to coach because they said if we don't have a coach, we won't have a team for your child. So I volunteered, and there's 9 boys on this team, and I think 2 of them have picked up a basketball before. The rest of them, I think, were confusing this with soccer, where there was going to be like treats at halftime and treats at the end. And they didn't realize everything that went into actually playing a basketball game. So I've coached 3 games, and the first one we were blown out. It was like 24-0. The second one, I think, was like 32-8. And the team said, well, we scored this time. And I said, well, that's really good. And the game just on Saturday morning, it was 6-24. So not great basketball players. I think they have fun. But the reason why I talk about this is one of the things I'm working with them on is being good teammates to each other. So I really encourage them, when you're on the bench, I want you to cheer for your teammates. When you're on the floor, I'll say this over and over to them, make it easy for your teammate to get the ball to you if he needs to. And so we talk a lot about not being in one team so that you can get the ball. So making it easy for your teammate to pass the ball to you is what we're going to talk about today. And how keeping an eye on how our partner needs to function, or how our partner functions best, can help us to help our partner to show up more fully in the relationship. So some of you who may have a long history in recovery or in therapy may have listened to what I just said and think, well, that might be codependency or enabling, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. There's a really big difference between, I think, supporting your partner in being a good partner and making your partner be a good partner. So we're not talking about making your partner be a good partner. We're not talking about buying yourself gifts and wrapping them and putting "from my partner to me" on it. We're talking about knowing your partner's world, knowing what's important to them, knowing what they need, and supporting them in getting that. So the polls, do we have answers to this yet, Tammy?
Yes, we do. So, and everybody's voted.
Okay. How do I see those?
I'm not sure. So I can tell you that of the, how much do you feel like your partner's needs to be happy and healthy? 50% said I know a great deal. 17% said I am good at guessing. And 33% said I don't know much.
Okay. Good. So that's our first piece of insight here to look at. There's a lot of reasons why you may or may not know a lot about what your partner needs to be happy and healthy. And we've built a lot of our relationships on a assuming. Some of us are really good caretakers, and some of us can be really good at tuning out from the relationships that we're in. For those of you who answered, I know a great deal, if you would, in the chat section, if you would maybe state one or two of the ways that you've gotten to know a lot about what your partner needs to be happy and healthy. What are some of the things you used? Was that conversation? Was that observation? If you could put that in. Those of you that answered, I'm good at guessing or I don't know much. The first thing that I would encourage in encouraging you care, or encouraging your partner to be a good partner for you, is direct conversation. Especially in recovery, when I work with folks who are addicted and their spouses or their partners, there can be a lot of fear around asking, how are things going, or what do you need? Because we may have this firm knowledge or this fear that when we ask how are things going or what do you need, we're going to find out that things aren't going great, or what our partner needs is not us, or the opposite of what we have to provide for them. So honestly, there can be a lot of legitimate fear around finding out what your partner needs, but I think it's really invaluable information. Somebody just responded and said they learned a great deal about their partner through observation, conversation, and what I've learned from conflict. I love that last one especially, because again, a lot of times the rules that we have about how relationships are supposed to work says that conflict is bad and it's not supposed to happen, so there's nothing valuable in it. There's actually a lot that's valuable in conflict. Most couples that I work with don't tend to get in conflict over things that they don't care about. And so if the kinds of conflict you and your partner have on a regular basis, it can tell you a lot about what they care about, what's important to them. So thank you for sending that in. So learning how to have some of those direct conversations, or even those questions, it can be as serious and weighty as sitting your partner down and saying, hey, I want to know what's going on in your life, and I want to know what you need, so that I can support you in that. So can you outline for me what your plan is, how I can support you, what kind of time do you need? Or it can be as simple as a daily check-in with your partner where you're saying something like, what could I do to make your life easier today? And that may be, you know what, I've got to go pick up some dry cleaning, or it would be really nice if we could have dinner tonight. You can learn a lot just through those simple questions. And so I'd really encourage in this YouCare, the first step would be getting to know your partner accurately. If you're going on your assumption, the best you can do is guess. If you're going on real knowledge that's gleaned from talking to them, you'll have a lot better idea of what you can and are willing to do for your partner. I think that's a really important part of a healthy relationship exchange, is that we do things for each other. That's not all the relationship is built on, but like, for example, I know that if I go out to eat and my wife isn't with me, she considers it a very loving act for me to save some of what I ate and bring it home to her for leftovers. And so that's something that I try to do on a regular basis. It also helps me not to overeat when I'm out to lunch, but I'm happy to do that for her because I know it shows her that I'm thinking about her, and that means a lot to her. The second question, this has to do with the first, how often, oh, go ahead, Tammy.
Posted in the questions, it said, I said, I don't know much. My love language is service and conversation. I've asked and I get, I don't know, or he says he wants to have more sex.
Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that send in as well. The reality is, you may have a partner who isn't able to give you good self-report because they may not know, or what they're asking is something that could be hurtful to you. Like if there's been betrayal and your partner is saying the problem is we don't have enough sex, and you know that that's not true, that's not the problem, it's not a good idea for you to take that at face value. But I recommend it as the place to start, because oftentimes our partners can surprise us in what they need. And if they don't surprise us, then we do have to rely on some observation. And so what you may find is what works and what doesn't work for your partner may be a lot more based on what you see happen in the relationship interactions, and maybe you cataloging, when my partner comes home from work or we come home from being apart from each other, and I greet them with, hey, we've got to XYZ tonight, and my partner loses their cool or they get really frustrated with me. Again, it's not your job to make sure your partner never gets frustrated, but you may look at that and say, that's not the best time to approach my partner with needs. I know they want to relax after work. So we can get some good, accurate information from observation if the self-report isn't helpful or accurate. Thank you for sending that in. Do we have answers to the second question, Tammy?
So the question was, how often do you directly ask your partner what they are needing in their life? And 13% said multiple times per day, 50% said weekly, 13% said monthly, 13% said yearly, and 25%, why would I want to start a fight?
Mm-hmm. That last part, why would I want to start a fight? In talking about how to show up and help your partner be the best partner they can be for you, there is a reality that getting into that realm of what do you need and what can I do for you, that can surface a lot of resentments. That can surface some, for lack of a better word, some irrational thinking. One of the things that I've been learning as I have kind of been looking at how relationships work in addiction recovery is that getting into the realm of, especially if your partner is addicted, getting into the realm of what can I do for you? This is a person who doesn't have a fully functioning frontal lobe. And so their perceptions of that could be really distorted. They could be doing a lot of blaming you. They could be doing a lot of displacement, taking what their needs are and putting them onto you, or their frustrations with themselves and putting it onto you. So there is a reality that talking to your partner in that way could start a fight. Again, as you look at the overall, how do I help my partner to be the best partner for me? Sometimes in the short term, we look at how can we take some of the regular conflict off the table? What can I change in my approach to help things calm down for a while, with the goal of creating an opportunity later on to have some of those harder conversations. But if you're finding that one of the ways that you approach your partner again and again is a dead end, and it ends in their being angry, something you can do to encourage your partner to be a better partner is not approach them in that way. Either find a different way or put that on the back burner until there's some more stability, some more sobriety in the system. Somebody just put a message in. They said, I don't have a partner and haven't for many years. I've based this on my relationship with my son, even though I ask him and he tries to shut me down and can get quite angry. So yeah, these skills aren't just for a romantic partner or a husband or a wife. These work in other relationships as well. But we'll see here, I think this supporting your partner in being a good member of the relationship, it's not easy, it's fraught. There can be a lot of defensiveness. So I think that's another part of this, is knowing when to give yourself credit for the good faith effort and to back off into something that's safe. My thought is you can never test the water too much. And that's part of finding those open windows of connection, is if we're in the habit of on a daily basis or multiple times a day checking in with how are you doing, what are you needing from me, what can I do, we may find that 5 out of 6 times there's a closed window, but that 6th time there is an open window. And that's one of the things that we can add to the relationship, is communicating to our partner our openness, communicating to our partner what we need in a way that's invitational, not demanding. In recovery, I think there's some standard logistics that a lot of people have to consider. Like if your loved one is in a recovery program, they probably need time to go to meetings or therapy. They might need some understanding. If they're in a meeting that has peer-to-peer support, they might need some understanding that they will be answering the phone in the middle of some things, and supporting your partner, even if you don't know what's going on or understand what's happening there, supporting them in their good faith efforts to engage in recovery can go a really long way. If you're the addicted spouse and your behavior has been traumatizing, your betrayal has been traumatizing to your partner, understanding that there are going to be sometimes they don't want to talk to you. I always use the analogy, if you were to go get a medical procedure and that procedure was botched, would you want that same doctor to be the one who repaired it? Probably not. You would seek some other help. And so giving space and giving room to do what we need is another way that I think we can encourage good self-care in our partner. Even if we may not feel like we can completely trust our partner in that separate space, understanding that that's the choice that they make, and we give them opportunities to exercise their choice and their best efforts. And just a word about where this becomes enabling. Enabling is when we do something for another person they can and should do for themselves. Would add to the end of that over and over again. Sometimes to give a loved one a needed jump start, we may do something for them that they can and should do for themselves once or twice to show that, hey, I'm willing, I'm trying, I'm reaching. But if that becomes the norm in the relationship where I'm the one who's moving, or I'm the one that's giving you the opportunities to connect and you're not creating those for yourselves, then we've probably moved into something enabling, and we'll want to look at some boundaries that we need after that. But that's kind of the overall you care. Again, make it easy for your partner to pass to you. Look for things that you can give on a regular basis that don't put you in a position to enable or to take abuse. And the last thing that I would add to that is praise and reinforce the behavior that works for you in a relationship. A lot of time in recovery circles, we can get focused on what's not working and how do I let my partner know about what's not working, which is important. I think it's just as important to take the time when your partner does something that does work for you to sincerely praise that and let them know, hey, I really noticed you tried on that, or I really noticed that you made some extra effort and some extra time to go to dinner with me. I appreciated that, whatever that looks like. Praise goes just as long a way as boundaries do. So
did you want the question put in the chat?
Yeah, let's put the last question in the chat. And this will be when you can respond in the chat and we can discuss. So how do you support your partner and people you're in relationships with to take good care of themselves? What are some of the ways you guys have found effective in supporting the people you're in relationships with to be a good partner? We can also open this to any other questions. You can put that in the Q&A. And we can answer that. It can be on this topic or anything else.
There was a follow-up question on this. I like the way you have reframed that. See the times he does open up and express his needs and not worry so much about the shutdown, except that they will come and that's okay. And that's true.
Yeah. I always think of What About Bob? When the main character, he makes friends, or he tries to make friends with his psychologist family, and he follows him on vacation, and he's talking with his psychologist daughter, and the psychologist is understandably upset that this character Bob is encroaching into his family, and he storms off because of that. And Bob turns to his daughter and he says, I just learned that people are like telephones, and sometimes their number's out of order, they just can't be reached. And so I just think, I'll just hang up and I'll try again. I think it's really good advice actually to see people as like, sometimes they're just not available to connect, because if we take that one opportunity that we had, or that one opportunity that we wanted to take and it didn't work out, we can get really distressed and we can become anxious or angry. And that doesn't make us good problem solvers. That makes us really good at reacting. And so I really like that. I can take some shutting down. That's going to happen. I'll look for the opportunities I have to connect.
Well, I think for me too, somebody could say, what do you need right now? And I could go, I don't know. I just, like if I'm in a state, shall we say, I don't know. So for me, like having my husband or ask me, or if I'm asking him, say, I've been thinking about this, would this be helpful for you? And then I can go, yes, or no, that's not quite right, but this would be helpful. It kind of gives me a direction to go. And so even making a suggestion of, instead of it being an open-ended question for me, sometimes I need it to be, a little more practical of like, would this help?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's a story, Carver, right?
Mhm.
Carver Brown. Um, Carver Brown talks about how when he was first with his wife, it took him about a year to find out that she had a pattern around him being in a bad mood. And, he'd come home in a bad mood and she would say, "Do you want to talk?" And he'd say, "Of course I don't want to talk. Why would I want to talk?" And then she'd say, "Okay, can I get you some water?" And he'd be like, "No, why would I want water?" And she would just calmly turn around and leave the room. And said after about a year, he said, "Hey, I've noticed that you always ask me if I want to talk, and then you ask me if I want water. What's that about?" And she says, "Well, I think those are the two things that I can give you if I notice that you're upset. And if you don't want to talk, I can certainly get you a glass of water. If you don't want that, there's nothing else I can do for you. So I'll just let you kind of figure that out." And so I think offering our best guess, one or two of our best guess, that can be, I think, a generous way to let our partner start interacting. But if they don't, again, don't take that personally. Sometimes it takes some time to figure out what we need, and you can rest assured in your best efforts that you did everything that you could in that moment. Somebody just put in the way that they support a partner. They said, "I always look at what my son is doing and look at myself and see if I'm falling short in that area, and sort it out to role model. I speak to him about what I'm seeing and why that doesn't work and ask, does he need support? I found that a lot of ways he doesn't care for himself are the ways that I've role modeled the lack of self-care." I like that, being able to bring that introspection and just kind of asking, hey, is something not working in this? I think particularly between parents and children, for me, it's been one of the hardest parts of parenting is what my kids struggle with is probably something that I haven't been able to teach them yet. But there's an opportunity to. Somebody else put in, "I listen without interrupting. I give space when it's asked for. I am safe with my feelings and theirs. I support their desire for creative or playtime. I agree to timeouts if flooding happens." Those are also really great ways to support your partner in being a good partner in the relationship. You're muted, Tammy.
Yeah, that's because my phone rings. Sorry. So there's one in the Q&A too. It says, "I
Yeah.
encourage my husband to find things to do that makes him happy. Every time I take my best guess, my husband always says, 'Don't assume my motives.'"
Mm-hmm.
That's challenging.
Yeah. I think sometimes, so I think back to the stages of change that we covered in a webinar a couple months ago. And when somebody is not seeing the problem, it's really hard to engage them in something different. So sometimes the data we get back from supporting our partner in being a good partner is that they may not be super interested in that. It's not uncommon in the couples that I work with that one partner may be more interested in settling the score, so to speak. They may feel like there's some injustice in the relationship, and that may be their one focus is to settle that injustice. Or other couples that I worked with, the focus is for one or both partners, I just don't want to look like an idiot. And when we have those motives or we have those approaches that kind of show I'm more interested in protecting me than I am in being a good partner to you, or being a working part of our relationship, we may not have a place in the relationship right now where two people are going to feel real safe and connected and secure. And that's difficult. That is really difficult.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here thinking, I don't even know what I would do in that particular situation if I got shut down every time. So
that might be one of those, if that's a long-standing pattern, if there's not marriage therapy going on yet, that's a really good opportunity to say, sounds like we're going to need some help with this because I'm not getting it right in what you need, and you're feeling frustrated by that. I think in this helping your partner show up in a meaningful way for you, sometimes there can be this lose the battle to win the war. We may give in a place where we don't feel like giving in that moment, but if giving in that moment creates some openness, then that may have been worth giving in that moment. But yeah, if we're running into that again and again, that might be a place where some professional help is needed.
Yeah, I was thinking too, it's like sometimes I just need to go for a walk, and my husband
Mhm.
doesn't love to walk, but he'll go with me, and I think just being out and being away and, like we have some really good conversations and can talk about it's very easy to be distracted in the house. There's always something or the TV's on or whatever. So sometimes for me, it's just being in a place, being in a different setting and us both walking alongside each other, and then it's been an opportunity to have, some conversations on a different level.
Yeah.
So somebody put in, aside from being in recovery, these issues are reason I'm fearful of dating. I don't want to end up in a relationship where I'm having to work at getting my partner to express themselves and shamed and shut down for wanting to know them and work on a partnership. And that's why my experience in relationships has been so far me working hard and being shut down. Having this in my family of origin, I just don't have the tolerance for this in my friendships or relationships.
Yeah. The good news about relationships that are starting, that are new, is that there's not there's not a lot of investment in putting up with crap that's not working for you. And so, I think for a lot of people in recovery, the way that they approach dating is very different than they approached dating before. Where dating before may have been, I just want to be with somebody, and we'll work out the details of who that person is later or the qualities of that relationship later. And in recovery, we may be a lot more aware of what we need and especially what we don't need. So there may be some of this. If you're finding that there's an imbalance early on in a relationship, I'm always having to coach you out. That may be, you may want to look at, do I want to invite myself to spend more time with this person, or have I gotten a pretty good idea of what the balance of this relationship is going to be? I think it's okay to say this dynamic in the relationship isn't going to be working for me, and I'm going to be looking elsewhere for relationships. There's also an important tie-in. This person said, having this in my family of origin, I just don't have the tolerance for this in my friendships or relationships. One of the opportunities that I think recovery presents us is to get a different relationship skill set. And I had a sponsor who said this to me in my recovery. He said, if you find yourself attracting the same people over and over again, you may be just attracting the people that you've got a good skill set for. So you might need to change your skill set. If you want someone who's more open, you got to figure out what to do with that. If you want someone who's more reciprocal, you've got to figure out how to show that you're open to that. But I look at those as not necessarily bad reasons to have a hard time dating in recovery. I think there's also a point in our recoveries where we become less willing to tolerate chaos because we've worked so hard to manage chaos or get out of it. And I think that's definitely something to be honored.
Well, I see there's a follow-up. I'm doing the Dating and Recovery Online Dating March. So I just learned of a recovery app for people to date. And I just heard about that this weekend. So I was actually going to share that. So
Awesome.
yeah, I was like, what a great tool to have people that are like-minded, and you can have the conversations and find out more. So
Yeah.
great. A one layer deeper. I don't know that one. I thought it was online dating. I assumed when I saw OLD. See, that's what happens. I assume.
So one layer deeper is actually something that I had started with friend Jackie and Amy. I've now pulled back from that just because I got busy with some other things. But you're in good hands with One Layer Deeper. I highly recommend the work that they do. That'll be a good webinar in March.
Well, and if you want information on a dating app, cleanandsoberlove.com. So I haven't investigated all of it. So, but
it was only a matter of time before resources like that started popping up everywhere.
I was like, that's brilliant. So anyway, so then there's a follow-up in the questions. Tried marriage counseling. He actually said that in front of her, the therapist, and she agreed with him.
Mm-hmm.
Sad. So
yeah, that is hard. Sometimes the data that we get back from our good faith efforts to get to know our partner it may be hard data for us to see, or it may not be the data that we want. But I also think that that's a critical part of being in a relationship with someone, is we have to believe what they say, even if what they say isn't what we want to hear or isn't what we need in that relationship. Sometimes believing what they say gives us the opportunity to reevaluate what we want out of that relationship, and if we're going to get it out of that relationship. That's a very hard situation for sure.
And somebody kind of challenged me on a webinar last week, because they perceived that what we were saying, it was Dr. Rob and I, that we were saying just leave the relationship, and we understand that not everybody can.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can or wants to. So
Yeah.
but I'm kind of thinking that part of it is that if you're not getting this in the relationship with your significant other, then finding it in friendships or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we all have relationship needs. And so if you, and I'm not saying have an affair, but like have, friendships and other things support your relationship needs. So if your primary person is unable to provide that, having the good support so that you're cared for, and you're valued for who you are is really important.
Yeah, that's a really, I think, critical part of having a healthy relationship. I think in relationships with two reasonably healthy, committed people, we can put a lot of our needs into the relationship. If we don't have that, we need to put those needs in other places, and that certainly not, advocating going and having an affair, but that may be an opportunity to look at the qualities of friendships. Do I have the friendships that I need? Do I have the social support that I need? Because marriages happen and they stay together for a lot of different reasons. And in my opinion, there's not a right reason for it to happen and a right reason for it to stay together. So a lot of folks have a marriage that's about we live in the same house, we've raised kids together, we have our family together, but when it comes to what I need emotionally and how I get excited about life, like that's not something that I get from my partner. My dad really loves to travel and my mom hates it. So he travels with friends and she stays at home and has a quiet weekend, and they both think that's the best and it works for them. So, there's a lot of different ways that those relationships are configured. And I really echo what you say, Tammy. Those needs can be met in a lot of different ways. And I think the key to, being healthy and happy ourselves is to make sure that our needs are getting met in whatever configuration that needs to look like.
Agree. So any other questions, thoughts? Feel free to add them to the Q&A. John is happy to answer questions. Give him your toughest question.
Yeah, throw me a curveball.
So I'll take a moment. We're adding some more drop-in groups and some more webinars. There will be a Prodependence. So for partners specifically, it will be a working group. So the person leading it, Kim Buck, is writing co-writing the workbook for Prodependence. So there will be tools, and she's going to have a webinar on Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific time, twice a month, and it will be an opportunity to work through the Prodependence materials. Also, we're adding a women's sex and love addict drop-in group that should be adding in February. And we're working on a couple other options too, hopefully a male partner option as well. So all of those are coming, but if you haven't already registered on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, that's where the schedule is. And then you'll also get the list of what's coming up in a particular week. So there's in the chat, can you give an example of how you would how you would word asking someone for what they need when they seem distressed or angry?
Yeah, so distressed or angry, this is one of those emotional states where I think it's important to realize that the frontal lobe, the reasonable part of the brain, is not going to be functioning as keenly as it might with other emotional states. So keep that in mind. that when you're approaching this person, you may not be having a reasonable conversation with them. So I like in this approach just a very gentle, I'm witnessing you. So it might be something like, it seems like you're frustrated right now. I would be happy to talk to you about that if you feel like you're in a place to talk. That might be a really soft way, and it keeps the emphasis on, I'm willing to talk with you about this. Or it might be, hey, you seem frustrated right now, and I seem to be adding to that. So I'm going to go and take a walk, or I'm going to go and take a break. I'm going to go grab a coffee. I'm going to come back, and let's see if you want to talk when I get back, or let's see if we can talk when you get back. I think the key there is to remember that when emotions are high, there's not going to be a whole lot of being able to work things out cognitively going on. So you might even invite, hey, you seem stressed right now. Do you want to take a walk with me? Would you like to go outside with me? Can I get you something to drink? Just a really simple offer that kind of lets them be in their own space and figure out what they want to do, but also shows that you're willing to reach a little bit. I found that kind of loving, can I do this little thing for you, can encourage some softening, can encourage some, okay, I can see that you're willing to help. Let me see if I can what am I trying to say? Let me see if I can put some words around what I'm needing.
Well, and when you're talking about the thinking part of your brain, it was the example I was using earlier. Sometimes, like, if somebody says, what do you need? I'd go, I don't know. I need to not be angry. Well, what is that? How are you going to get from point A to point B? So, would you like to talk about it? Mm-hmm. For me, that would be super helpful, because then, then just venting it, then it starts, getting some clarity, and having somebody just hearing me is helpful. So, mm-hmm. And listening to it and go, what I hear you saying is blah, blah, blah. That's, helpful. So, okay. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of questions. My husband is a porn addict who at my insistence a few years ago has stopped watching porn. When he watched porn, he would ignore and reject me. When he stopped watching porn, he became resentful, ramping up to stonewalling, gaslighting, blame switching, justification, etc. This behavior lasted a few years, as well as him having a few slips caused by triggers from the internet. I am dealing with and actively working on betrayal trauma and emotional flashbacks from the abuse. He is now trying to be present in the relationship, and things are much better. He recently told me that he started using Twitter. I told him that I would not feel comfortable with him accessing Twitter, and that I don't trust him enough, and if he did go on Twitter, our marriage would suffer. He told me I'm being controlling, so yes, I'm trying to control, but I'm trying to maintain my mental health. I don't know what to do.
I would offer a little reframe on that. I think stuff like that is very traditionally labeled as controlling. There's also natural consequences to our behavior, and I think that's the approach we take when our partner is doing something that is triggering to us. Like, part of that, if you're doing something that's triggering to me, I'm probably not going to be able to spend a lot of relaxed time with you. I'm probably not going to be actively able to work on my side of rebuilding trust and rebuilding openness to you if you're doing things that really scare me. And that's all that needs to be communicated there. Our partners, of course, are able to do whatever they want to do. That's part of what makes two adults in an adult relationship is the knowledge that you're going to do what you want to do ultimately, and ultimately I'm going to do what I want to do. And the relationship works if we understand enough about what each other needs, that we choose behaviors that minimize damage to our partner and maximize connection. And so in situations like that, the reframe away from control, I think, is important. Being able to say, I don't feel safe when you're using Twitter, and you choosing that behavior hampers my ability to trust you. It makes it hard for me to have emotional conversations with you. And then you just leave it at that. And they're able to keep choosing whatever they want to choose, and you stick to that boundary with you. If it doesn't feel safe to you, don't pretend like it is. I think that one of the most effective motivators for someone to change behavior in relation to the behavior into the relationship is to be able to feel the natural consequences of what's not working. So we can do that in a very loving, supportive way. I'm not adding extra consequences. I'm just telling you when this is going on, it's hard for me to, and then follow through. But that, that reframe away from control, I think, is important, because often we'll get caught up in trying to prove that we're not controlling when that's really not the issue. The issue is your behavior is bringing this up in me. I have some feelings and I need to be able to attend to that. And so I'm going to attend to my feelings, and that may make it hard for me to attend to you.
Yeah, I was thinking too, it's like, I don't know if he has a sponsor in a 12-step program, but did he talk about this with his sponsor? What would his purpose in being on Twitter be? It's, I totally agree with John. So, okay. So I have heard nothing back after asking my partner to go to counseling with me and sending him the Out of the Doghouse book. Would it be helpful to reach out again? And it's been 3 months since I found out about online affairs.
That's tough. That's, in situations where we put out a request and we put out a suggestion, 3 months is a really long time to go without any contact back. One of my personal philosophies in relationship is that if I'm in a place where I can give a warm, sincere invitation and I'm willing to follow through on that invitation, it's never wrong to offer. So if in anything that's going on in a relationship, if you feel like you can invite into the relationship space and it's not an expectation, it's not an ultimatum, there may not be a lot of harm in putting it out there. That may open up the opportunity that needs to be there. It also, you may not have a receptive person on the other end. But I would look at that side of the preparation. Am I prepared to get nothing back? If I reach out and I'm expecting this is the one that's going to do it, what kind of emotional damage am I going to go through? But if I'm reaching out saying, hey, this is somebody that I care about and I really would like to give it a shot, and I'm willing to reach out one more time and say, hey, what have you thought about this? I'd really like to hear from you. As long as the expectations are appropriate, I think warm invitations can do nothing but open up opportunities in relationships. The very worst is they can be ignored, or we don't hear anything back. But it's like if I plan a birthday party for myself and someone doesn't want to come, I'm still going to have a birthday party for myself.
Yeah, I don't like being in limbo, so I would probably do the same thing. I'd probably reach out, but I would also have, if they don't even respond, then I'd have to go, well, then is this something I want to continue to be in limbo for? So, yeah. So there's a comment in the chat. I feel with my son, age 14, often uses anger to negate responsibility, accountability, and get me to do everything he doesn't want to do. And I think some of it he's learned from observing my mother and his dad does this to me for years. It feels controlling, and I didn't realize he may not be able to think it through in his anger state. How long does it take for the frontal lobe to come back on board?
Yeah, so 20 minutes is the magic number. And that's 20 minutes of not ruminating on whatever was bringing up those strong emotions for you. So like 20 minutes of not talking, but thinking about what a jerk your partner is or the other person is, that's not going to move those emotions. But 20 minutes of some calming, some soothing, even some intentional distraction, that can bring the nervous system back down. And so, in situations like this where, and this comes up in relationships all the time, where people can learn that strong emotions kind of shut the other person down, and it takes me off the hook on some things that are uncomfortable. Making that 20-minute check-in. So if you, are approaching your loved one and you notice they're angry, you might say, I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk. I'll come back and I'll check in and see how you're doing. And if you'd like to talk, then I would be open to talk. And you may come back after 20 minutes and they're still angry, and you may say, yeah, it looks like we're not going to be having this conversation right now. I'm going to go and start making dinner. I'll let you know when it's ready, or I've got some work that I've got to finish, or you know what, tonight I would really like to, I'm going to go out with one of my friends and we're going to go to a movie. This is another one of those, like, we can draw a loving boundary and our loved one gets to feel the consequences of their behavior. We don't have to add anything to it. And I really like when anger is boiling and it's not going anywhere. I like being able to remove yourself from the situation and do something that's caring for yourself, because it takes your mind off of whatever's going on there, and you don't have to revolve around that. And it gives the person the opportunity to figure out for themselves what they need to do, how they might need to come down from that, or the care they might need. And there's always tomorrow morning to be able to talk about it. I found with my 6-year-old, if I request anything of him after 6 p.m., it's going to end in a meltdown. But if I catch him in the morning after his shower, that kid is the happiest, most accommodating person in the world. So I've just learned the right timing to bring up concerns with him. And, it keeps everybody happier. And I feel like it's a small price for me to pay. Doesn't make a difference to me whether his room's clean tonight or tomorrow morning before he goes to school. And I'd much rather not have the 40-minute fight before. So
that's called strategic parenting. So that was
right.
My husband, brave man. I remember years ago, he handed me my running shoes, and he was like, "Why don't we talk about this when you get back from a run?" And I was just like, "You're like, blah, blah, blah," And
Why do you think I need a run?
Well, he was right, but I left going, rah, 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 by the time I got back, I was like, I don't even remember what we were going to, because I was ready to engage, so it's one of those things where, but over the course of it was more than 20 minutes, I'm sure, because I went a few miles, but it was just like, completely reframed and settled me down. And then I was like, it changed my perspective, and therefore we could have I don't even remember what the big fight was going to be about, but it was, I gave him a lot of credit for, here's your shoes. Let's talk about that. So she says, I've been removing myself, but have it seems this is what my son wants, free use of the TV and his games and me out of the way. Oh, okay.
That's a tricky parenting thing. And, the rules in your house will depend on what works for you and for your family. I'll say in my house, one of the things that my kids know, and I've actually set it up so I can enforce this, is that we don't use the TV to regulate our emotions. So I'll let them know, if you're upset right now and you want to go out and play basketball or ride your bike, if you'll do that for 20 minutes, there's that 20-minute magic number. If you want to come in then and watch some TV, I'm all for setting that up for you and letting you do that. But I really want to encourage some other nervous system moderation there. And my kids also, they know, but they test this every single time. I'll let them know, if you were just screaming at me, I'm not going to give you screen time. And I have some parental controls on my router, the wireless internet, where I can shut down internet access to devices that are connected to it whenever I want. And, so I'll let them know, hey, I'm going to be turning off the TV. So that's not going to be an option for you to figure this out. But once we've been able to talk, I would be happy to turn it back on for you. It's a risk every time, because there's usually a fight when I remind them that there's boundaries around the TV, but I'm willing to hold that line, because one of the things that I don't want them to learn is they can blow up at me and get me out of the way, and then they can do whatever they want. I really want to encourage them. I want to make it easy for them to pass their emotions to me through talking and spending time together. So I strategically eliminate some of their options, or put up a hoop or two that I want them to jump through before they use that option, that encourages them to practice some good self-care and some good emotion management.
Yeah, that's great. So any other questions or comments? If we don't, then I think we will wrap up for today. I remind you that actually we have a guest on for tonight. Dr. Rob is going to be traveling. And so we've got Dr. David Fawcett, who is going to step in and be on the webinar tonight. He does one alternating Wednesdays for us, and he's great. I loved his one on resiliency. Oh, we've got one. Oh, thanks, helpful. Great. So, and drop-in groups. So because this is the 5th week in the month. Brittany is going to be doing the partner drop-in group again this Wednesday. So 2 weeks in a row, there'll be a partner group on Wednesday at 12:30 Pacific time. So encourage you, if you are a partner, to join that conversation. So lots more coming to the website and podcasts. If you haven't listened to some of the podcasts, there's some great information on those as well. So I think that's all. Anything else from you?
Just thank you everybody for attending today and asking questions and interacting. If there's ever topics you want to see covered, feel free to put those in the chat when you're on. I'm always looking for ideas of things that are relevant to explore in these webinars. So thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.